Hello. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Thinking Logically. I'm your host, Joseph Anthony Corsai. In studio, he's a Pittsburgh Steelers superfan, so I'm sure he has something to say about the Stormy Daniels testimony about, what was it, making Ben go from 6 o'clock to midnight or something?
You know what? I was saying earlier today on a show here that out of all the athletes on the planet, the thousands and thousands that came and gone, every team, every sport, it would be our quarterback that is the headline in this case. I can't believe it.
I can. And on the phone, 2024 Shenley Park Peaceful Protest Survivor, Mr. Gordy, our co-host, is with us. Mark, how are things?
Joe, it's great. We were joking about things on Monday, on the show. And coincidentally enough, we had a tornado touchdown 2 nights ago right by the Pittsburgh International Airport, which is, as you know, where I live very close to that. So, but we're all still alive out here, Joe. We're doing well, and I am fired up for this episode. I can tell our listeners right now this is probably going to be our best episode to date. And let's just get it started, Joe. If you are voting for Joe Biden in the upcoming election, call into the show and let us know why. 724-843-1888. I'm ready to go.
Okay, let's take a time out, though, first, and just recap what we saw across the board in some of these so-called Trump cases since our last show. New York's judicial oversight body initiated an investigation into claims that Judge Arthur Engoron met with a high-profile attorney who allegedly offered unsolicited advice on the Trump case prior to a major ruling. In the Georgia election case, the Georgia Court of Appeals said it will hear the disqualification case for Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. Also, for the classified documents case, Judge Cannon has suspended Jack Smith's classified documents case indefinitely. He is basically the one on trial now since it came to light that he or the FBI tampered with evidence for a photo op. Then I guess he lied to a federal judge about that. Now ask yourself, do you think this hush money case that dates back to 2016 is actually going to be any different? No. Sure, he may actually be jailed for breaking the gag order, but at what cost? He's gonna become more popular. I mean, it's not that crazy of a concept. It worked for Bill Clinton, and he admitted to sexual intercourse with an intern in the White House, mind you. You are currently witnessing the biggest Uno reverse card ever delivered in the history of American politics. The classified documents case is over. The real estate case is over. The Georgia election case is over. This case is over. Oh, wow. You thought they had Trump this time, but again, it was a nothing burger? I told you this would happen. You don't have to be Nostradamus or Jeannie Dixon to figure this stuff out. It's been going on for almost a decade. From Russiagate and the pee-pee hoax to a phone call with Zelensky that got Trump impeached. But by the way, how's Zelensky's reputation these days? And talk about hypocrisy with the first impeachment involving Trump holding up weapons and aid to Ukraine, which Trump did not, in fact, hold up weapons to Ukraine. Joe Biden yesterday threatened to cut off aid and weapons to Israel. Where is the impeachment there? It's the same exact thing. I'm so sick and tired of this hypocrisy in our federal government. Where are the Republicans? Start issuing some subpoenas. Remember, if you issue a subpoena, they have to come testify or else they go to jail. Shout out Peter Navarro. But back to the 4 cases involving Trump. What you are seeing is win after win after win when he's not even supposed to be the Republican candidate. Remember where things stood a year ago. And now, look, victory begets victory. If this is the Revolutionary War, this week we just saw the Battle of Trenton happen. Mark, let's go over what we saw in each of these 4 cases this week and help our audience understand what's really happening because they aren't going to get an honest and truthful reporting from the mainstream media. First up, the Trump hush money trial. So the Virgin Mary took the stand on Tuesday and today. Just kidding. That was actually porn star Stormy Daniels. So Stormy Daniels was in court where she's in court. The prosecution is trying to make her look like the Virgin Mary Talk about a chick that's sticking to her story. Even CNN was forced to admit this testimony did more harm than good in the case. Ryan, when you get a chance, play that first audio clip, please.
The material that came in was not relevant to this criminal case at all. And I think it shows that she was trying to get Trump. I actually thought there was a motive there. She said she hates him. She said she'd like to see him in prison. I think she was purposely throwing out this stuff to make sure the jurors were prejudiced, particularly the women jurors, but probably half of the men too.
Mark, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Joe, we saw some hard-hitting testimony today from one Stormy Daniels. Trump's defense team is earning their money, let's put it that way, by absolutely exposing Stormy. Joe, this testimony from Stormy Daniels really doesn't even have anything to do with the case. I mean, I hope everyone understands that. This really doesn't have anything to do with what he's on trial for. This is for an accounting. He's on trial for an accounting error, I guess, or the way they classified payments. I mean, we even heard John Fetterman say the other day, I don't even know what Trump's on trial for of all these different things. But Stormy Daniels, Joe, did you know, does our audience know, Stormy Daniels actually owes Donald Trump, I think it's either $300,000 or $500,000 for defamation and hasn't paid. Why should Donald Trump pay E. Jean Carroll $88 million if Stormy Daniels hasn't paid Donald Trump his part of the defamation lawsuit? Has anyone ever thought about that?
It's a very good
Probably
point.
no one ever knows about that, right? Because you don't hear about that. But that's what happened, right? So let's talk about what happened today in court. His attorney, Trump's attorney, Susan Nichelle, says here, this is from Travis Media Group, TM1 Politics on X, just absolutely embarrassed Stormy Daniels on the stand and caught her in a lie by using her own book against her. In her book, Full Disclosure, Stormy said that while talking to Gloria Allred, she denied having a romantic relationship with Trump. But Daniels testified that she told Allred otherwise. When presented with the book, Daniels was speechless for a moment before saying, I denied it in a phone conversation, but when I met her in person, I told her everything. This case is such a joke. Why can't they put it on TV so we could all laugh at Alvin Bragg and his witnesses? Another thing, they continue to call her out on Stormy Daniels' story changing. And it seems like, Joe, they wanted to extort Donald Trump for money. Is that what you got out of this as well, this testimony?
Yes. Extort, and also, since she was on the stand, use this trial to embarrass him. But yes, back then, it seems as if they were trying to extort Donald Trump for money.
Yes. And there was a conversation between Keith Davidson, I believe she was Stormy Daniels' attorney at the time, if I'm not mistaken, and Michael Cohen, where Stormy Daniels was on record saying that they needed Donald Trump to win the 2016 election to use it as leverage against him to get more money out of him. Because if he would have lost, they wouldn't have had the leverage they did in extorting a president of the United States. So that's what this testimony boils down to. This really has nothing to do with, I think, the overall case, if I have this correct. But, she's on record saying, you better settle this story, because if he loses this election, he's going to lose. If he loses this election, we lose all effing leverage. This case is worth zero. We now have Daniels' attorney admitting on a phone recording that Daniels was extorting the president. Will she be held accountable? Again, from the Travis Media Group on X. So
Travis Media Group on X. Great
came out
follow.
Today, Joe. So very interesting from Stormy Daniels. And finally, Joe, we have Madeline Westerhout. I was looking at this tweet on X, and I kept thinking, is she going to be Donald Trump's Frank Pantangeli from The Godfather? She was Trump's personal assistant while at the White House, and she was testifying today. And if you've ever seen The Godfather, you know what Frank Pantangeli did when he was called to testify against Michael Corleone. He didn't know anything about it.
I made it all up.
So,
I made it all up. But he's gagged. He can't. Remember, Trump can't defend himself. Everyone in the media is allowed to comment on this except for Donald Trump. And he keeps on pushing. He's telling this judge, listen, I'm not going to stop talking about this case. You can throw me in jail, but I'm not going to stop talking. He's showing everyone that he has his constitutional rights, and if Judge Merchan wants to violate those rights and put him in prison, then he's happy to make that sacrifice. He even said, I think he tweeted out or whatever on Truth Social, give me liberty or give me death, talking about a famous Patrick McHenry quote. Patrick Henry. Or wait a minute. I get the House of Representatives. The guy in the House of Representatives that was intern speaker for a day. I get him confused. But this trial is going to continue to go on. They go again on Friday, and then we're gonna keep on following this because what's the score now? Like 10-0.
Oh, listen, Joe, I am begging Trump to continue. I want him to violate this gag order so bad because I want Merchan to throw him in prison because that would seal this election. It's over the top.
All right, we still have 3 other trials to cover here. So the Jack Smith classified documents case. May 20th trial date has been vacated. So I don't know how long this is extended to. The next hearing on key motions, the next hearing is on the key motions of unlawful appointment of a special counsel and a hearing on the scope of the prosecution team. It sounds like Jack Smith is now on the defensive. Am I crazy in saying that?
No, you're not crazy in saying that.
A giant Uno reverse card. Unbelievable how things can change so fast. What do we have here on X? Oh, this is from Charlie Kirk. So this image was leaked to the media following the raid at Mar-a-Lago, the first time such a dramatic action was taken against a former president. But it turns out those classified cover sheets were paper-clipped on the top of documents by the FBI. But it gets worse. In their haste to paint Trump as a criminal, the special counsel now concedes that some of the top-secret cover sheets do not even match the relevant documents. In other words, they created a photo op, and it's not even accurate. They lied, they leaked, they smeared, just like with the Russia hoax. Just like with the impeachment hoax, just like with every other case against Trump. What an absolute dumpster fire. Investigate Jack Smith. And he's right. How much time do you want to spend on this, Jack? Because it's on hiatus until it's done.
I just have to mention this, Joe. This is the epitome of hypocrisy. Eileen Cannon, she is the judge in this case. She's only 43 years old, right? And everyone knows that she is appointed by Donald Trump. So I just did this while you were speaking. I just had to look just to get a feel for what's out there, right? I Googled Eileen Cannon. Actually, DuckDuckGo her. I don't use Google anymore. Eileen Cannon's recusal from Donald Trump's trial could look like this. That's one headline from Newsweek. Remove Eileen Cannon calls grow after classified docs case blown apart. Remove Eileen Cannon petitions past 300,000 signatures. Democrats cry foul over Judge Cannon's handling of Trump documents case. Joe, are you kidding me?
Got to prep it.
We have a judge that donated to Joe Biden in 2020. His daughter is raising millions of dollars for the Democratic Party based on this trial. If anyone should recuse himself, it's him. But the left is so delusional, Joe, that they are calling for her to be removed from this because she is actually putting Jack Smith in her place for forging the evidence and staging this whole classified document shoot at Mar-a-Lago. What world are we living in? How disgraceful are the Democrats?
Accuse others what you are guilty of. That's what they're doing.
Oh, my gosh.
It's in their playbook. It's like page 1 of their playbook.
Oh, I am so fired up today. I cannot believe it. I'm speechless.
Okay, the Fani Willis case. So the Georgia Appeals Court has agreed to consider Trump's appeal of the ruling rejecting Fani Willis' disqualification from his criminal case. Look, this thing is getting a major delay at best. Fani Willis already said she won't testify. I don't know why she won't. They had no choice but to do this. Remember? I mean, they had no choice. This whole thing centers around Trump on a phone call saying, "Find me 10,000 more votes, Mark." And remember, this is the same county where Trump is being prosecuted for election interference. And what did we see come out of Georgia yesterday? That the Georgia State Election Board has decided that both the hand count audit and the certified machine recount in Fulton County were in violation of Georgia election law. Mark, do you have anything on this?
Oh, my gosh. So, beautiful Fani, she's probably going to get thrown off this case, at the very least, if not completely thrown out. But It looks like Trump was right, Joe, when he told Brad Raffensperger, the Georgia Secretary of State, find me 10,000 votes. Well, looks like they found the 10,000 votes, Joe, because they have. It says here, Joe Rossi testifies before the Georgia Board of Elections. He shares findings that both machine recount and hand count audit were found to be in violation of Georgia election law. So this doesn't. This smelled bad from the very beginning, Joe. From election night, from the 2 a.m. vote dump, from the halting of the recount, from the pipe burst in the arena where they were counting the votes. This reeked of corruption from the day one, from election night 2020. And Trump was right all along. This was complete fraud on many levels. I've said it before. How did Joe Biden, the only state he won in the South was Georgia, Joe? How is that happening?
How do you win Arizona?
Well, I'm saying the South.
Yeah.
The Southeast. Oh, how about that? He would have won Georgia. We found the 10,000 votes. They have multiple. They were scanning multiple ballots, and they have images, duplicate ballots, image ballots that they scanned. So they were scanning ballots twice. So Donald Trump would have won Georgia. It would not have changed the outcome of the election, but he would have won Georgia. Okay. So my theory that Donald Trump doesn't lose any states in the Southeast would have been true. Okay. So they cheated. So this came out, I think, yesterday. Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, signed a bill into law stating that all mail-in ballots have to be counted and tallied and accounted for within 1 hour of the polls closing on election night. Joe, do you realize how big this is for the Republican Party and Donald Trump 6 months from now?
This is what we needed.
Massive.
This is
that
what we
means
needed.
There's no more 2 a.m. vote dumps. Fulton County can't pull any shady moves, through the middle of the night. There's not going to be any more delays in vote counts. We're going to know who wins Georgia probably by midnight on election night. All right, and Donald Trump is going to win Georgia with this new law. Okay,
all right.
So the Georgia State Election Board, also going back to this, admitted in a recent letter to an elections expert, this guy Joe Rossi again, that they found the hand recount and machine count audit were found to be in violation of state law in the 2020 election.
All right, we're going to have to move to a break here, Mark. But just to close, the Georgia Election Board now says that in their letter to, I think his name's Joe Rossi, the matter is in the violation found category. Okay.
380,000 votes, ballot scans have gone missing.
All right. There's also a similar situation going on in Michigan. We'll have to get to another episode with the Michigan sheriff and Dominion voting. But when we return, according to Kathy Hochul, if you know what a desktop computer is, then you ain't black. After the break, we're going to play a game called What's More Racist? Stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this next segment. It's Thinking Logically on 99.3 WBVP. It's Joe again from Thinking Logically, here to tell you about one of my favorite clothing items, the MyPillow hoodie. Two things I love the most about this hoodie are how it fits and how it feels. This hoodie is extremely roomy, and its terry cloth material makes it lighter than any other hoodie I own. Use promo code LOGIC to maximize your savings. The MyPillow hoodie. Get yours today. Cash for your house. PGHbuyers.com. If you have an unwanted house but don't want the hassle of selling, visit PGHbuyers.com to see if PGHbuyers.com can help. No inspections and a fair cash offer. Visit PGHbuyers.com to sell that unwanted property for a fair price today. You know, when Joe Biden shuffles in front of the cameras to answer scripted questions during the day, he lies like Don King. But what you don't know is, when he goes to sleep at night, he lies like an Egyptian king because he uses MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets. Grown only in a region between the Sahara Desert, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Nile River, its long staple cotton makes it ultra soft and breathable. Use the promo code LOGIC to maximize your savings on this amazing product. It's Joe Corsi here from Thinking Logically to tell you about Beaver County's #1 realtor. Mark Galla with RE/MAX Select Realty. With over 10 years experience, Mark knows all the ins and outs of the real estate business, so whether you're looking to rent, buy, sell, or swap your house, you can rely on Mark to take the hassle out. Mark Galla of RE/MAX Select Realty, going above and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed on WBVP and WMBA are those of the participants and host. They are not necessarily the viewpoint of WBVP and WMBA, its staff, management, and advertisers. Thank you for listening to WBVP and WMBA.
Welcome back to Thinking Logically, streaming live on Beaver County Radio's YouTube account and their Facebook page. Check us out there. Of course, you need a phone or a computer to do that, which brings us to our next story, and it is a doozy. New York Governor Kathy Hochul said that black kids don't know what computers are. Ryan, you're going to want to hear this. Play the audio when you get a chance.
Young black kids growing up in the Bronx who don't even know what the word a computer is. They don't know. They don't know these things. And
Okay, let's play a game, audience. Which statement is more racist? Call in, please. What statement is more racist? Me saying that if Trump is incarcerated, he will take more of the black vote away from Joe Biden and the Democrats, or black kids can't use computers? Which is more racist? If you're a black kid, the number to call in is 724-843, and then what Kathy Hochul thinks your IQ is between 18 and 88. Again, if you're a black kid and actually know what a phone is, please call in. I know it probably would have to be a house phone, considering an iPhone is basically a computer, and according to Kathy Hochul, that's just too complex for you. But if you are a black person listening and you know what a pen and paper is, please write the number down, find a landline or payphone, and call in. I mean, Mark, did these kids learn nothing when they took online classes for all of 2020 and 2021? And also, I had no idea there was a contingent of black Amish people in the Bronx that have never seen cars or computers. Mark, what's going on here?
Well, speaking of the Bronx, I'm headed up there next month to catch the Yankees and the Dodgers, so I will try to do some investigative reporting, Joe, to see if black kids know what computers are in the Bronx. But Kathy Hochul claims, made this claim. Joe Biden said, back in 2020, that if you didn't vote for him, you ain't black. Democrats in general believe blacks and Hispanics can't get an ID because that's their entire argument against in-person voter IDs, because they don't have the ability to do that, or they're incapable of doing it, whatever. So, again, they whatever they accuse you of, that's what they do, or that's what they are. So, again, this is just disgraceful. I mean, Lee Zeldin was so close to winning this election, but yet New York chose Kathy Hochul again. So, just disgraceful on the part of the Democrats that they continue to pander to the black vote. But you know what, Joe? We're seeing more and more black voters are breaking for Donald Trump, and slowly and surely, we have 6 months to go. We got to get more of them on the train. Because as it stands right now, I think we win with the gains we've made with the black vote.
When you're talking about Donald Trump, I'd be very careful saying we need to get more black people on the train. Just someone might hear that and take it the wrong way. But seriously, it begs the question, who are the real racists? Is it MAGA Republicans, or is it people that say stuff like this? I mean, come on. This would get way more blowback if it was someone else. Speaking of
imagine if it was a MAGA Republican that made that statement.
Yeah. Speaking of racist, though, Joe Biden, if you remember, did eulogize a Grand Wizard or Grand Cyclops. I don't know which is which. I'm not in the KKK. But Joe Biden, our next topic, he was back on the campaign trail yesterday. And, of course, he wandered off that trail when it came time to act and speak in public. We're going to give you some highlights here in a second. Ryan, play the first audio about Joe Biden talking about the Green Bay Packers.
Liz Schuller, President, I'll say I thank you for all you do for benefit the American Union movement. My theology professor at the Catholic school I went to was a guy named Riley, last name, and he had been drafted by the Green Bay Packers.
Riley last name, was he buying apparel on NFL.com and saw Packers customizable jersey or something? Okay, hold on. Let me play another clip here. We have audio because after this he did a quick scripted interview, talk, whatever, with CNN's Aaron Burnett. Ryan, play that audio.
How seriously do you take that threat?
Seriously, just like they did January 6th. The guy is not a Democrat with a small d. I mean, he is, he's going to be, I'm your retribution. What president's ever said anything like this stuff?
He's referring to Donald Trump the whole time, and at the end he says, Trump's comment about, I will be your retribution. And Biden says, who's ever said anything like that? Keep in mind, Joe Biden is the same guy that stood at a podium flanked by two Marines with a red background and screamed at half of the country for being, quote unquote, MAGA. It looked like a Star Wars Empire Strikes Back scene or something. And then, Mark, and I'll get to you, Joe Biden had a CNN interview about aid to Israel, was a part of that. He also commented on Israel aid and said he would not supply bombs or artillery shells to the Israeli military if they move into population centers. I think he was talking about Rafah. But I said this a few episodes ago. There are situations where civilian loss is viewed as acceptable during war, like when we bombed Dresden during World War II. Was it a war crime to bomb civilians and not just people that identified as Nazis? How do you tell who's who? Seriously. Now, fast forward to today, where we had Hamas somehow carry out the largest slaughter of Jewish people since World War II. I want to find out how that was allowed or able to happen. That keeps on getting forgotten. It's very suspicious to me, in fact. At the same time, terrorists came across a border into a sovereign nation and murdered people in their homes. But I stand by my statement, we should not be arming anyone and everyone. Also, and then Mark, I'll give it to you, Biden needs to be impeached for this. Sorry again, I don't make the rules. I just make sure people abide by them. But this is the same thing Trump was impeached for over Ukraine, and Biden's now doing it with Israel, who at least is an ally to us. Mark.
Yes. So let's go back, Joe, and think about what happened to Donald Trump. He withheld aid from Ukraine unless they would look into Burisma Holdings and Hunter Biden, right? He wanted to, basically sniff out what was going on, the shady dealings of the Biden crime family in Ukraine, right? It's one of the most corrupt countries on earth. Kind of a reasonable request when you think about it, the fact that how much money gets laundered in Ukraine. So Joe Biden tweets out back on October 18th, 2019, President Trump withheld congressionally appropriated aid to Ukraine unless they granted him a political favor. It's the definition of quid pro quo. This is no joke. Trump continues to put his own personal political interest ahead of the national interest. He must be impeached. Well, that's kind of odd. Because not bombing Gaza is technically a political favor to Biden because of the heat he's getting from the pro-Palestinian protesters who are demanding a ceasefire. And I'm not saying that they are wrong. We'd love to see a ceasefire, love to see an end to this disaster in the Middle East. But that's okay because he's already lost those voters anyways. So all this is virtue signaling on behalf of the Biden administration to say, we're not going to arm Israel. Joe, is it just me or do these guys flip-flop every other week on these issues? They want to defend Israel. They're not going to arm Israel. I mean, what is it with these people? I mean, make up your mind. Their stances and positions change like we change underwear.
You're absolutely right. Biden in the very beginning was talking about how he saw the dead bodies of Israeli children and talking about all that kind of stuff. And now it's almost like like we said, he flip-flops around like a fish out of water. Just never know what this guy's going to say and when he's in front of the camera, whose back he's going to get. Keep in mind, it's different a little bit than Trump with Ukraine, but it's worse for Biden because Israel is an actual ally. Ukraine is not. Do you see? Do you understand?
If you're a Jewish American, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's all. That's all. Good.
I was going to say, if you're a Jewish American, how do you vote for Joe Biden? Honestly, I don't know how any Jew votes for Joe Biden.
When you see what's going on these college campuses, I mean, Biden is not solely responsible. You could make the argument Biden's not responsible for anything because he has no idea what's going on. And, he used that defense with Robert Hur. But how could you? A vote for Biden? Who's his base? No minorities are going to vote for him. Who is going to vote for Joe Biden? This election is going to be laughable if they do this all in one day.
Unmarried single women. That's his base.
All right. Speaking of Joe Biden and all the disasters he's called, let's move on to immigrants, and I guess this falls under the border a little bit too. This is from Unusual Wells on X. A surge in immigration has made the U.S. economy more competitive by preventing wages from rising more than they otherwise would have, the head of the International Monetary Fund has said. Now, again, this isn't a random account on Twitter or X. It's coming from that, but this is the guy from the Monetary Fund saying this. So a question, is this how Bidenomics works? Inflation goes up, and instead of wages going up at an equal or greater percent, they don't. And why don't they? Because the Joe Biden administration knows they can't win an election without bringing in millions of whatever you want to call them, illegals, newcomers, new voting bloc, whatever, and getting them driver's license so they could mail in a ballot and vote. It's the perfect crime. If they get caught, what are the illegal aliens going to say? I didn't know I couldn't vote. I was mailed a ballot, so I filled it out. You think they care? They're here illegally, remember? Mark, before we move to a break, do you have anything to say about that?
Well, Tucker Carlson put out a new interview the other night about this topic. So I'm still, I haven't watched it yet, but I'm very interested in what he has to say about this. This is the one thing that bothers me the most about this election coming up. We are literally under 6 months away from Election Day. What are we, probably 4.5 from when voting actually begins? And I am worried about them overwhelming the vote with these illegals that are in this country somehow, some way. I don't know how they're going to do it. Maybe it's the way you just described it here, but this does have me a little bit concerned, and I hope there are safeguards in place so this does not affect the vote total when they can't vote. For illegals.
All right. When we return, a presidential candidate had half of his brain eaten. This is a real story. It has nothing to do with cannibals or Joe Biden either, I promise. I mean, you would assume it is a Joe Biden story since he can't speak or talk and keeps on falling everywhere. Again, he doesn't belong in the White House. He belongs at St. Barnabas, where the only thing he'll fall for is the amazing luxury retirement living. Stay tuned. You're listening to Thinking Logically on our hometown 99.3 WBVP. You know, when Joe Biden shuffles in front of the cameras to answer scripted questions during the day, he lies like Don King. But what you don't know is, when he goes to sleep at night, he lies like an Egyptian king because he uses MyPillow Giza Dream Sheets. Grown only in a region between the Sahara Desert, the Mediterranean Sea, and the Nile River, its long staple cotton makes it ultra soft and breathable. Use the promo code LOGIC to maximize your savings on this amazing product. Cash for your house. PGHbuyers.com. If you have an unwanted house but don't want the hassle of selling, visit PGHbuyers.com to see if PGHbuyers.com can help. No inspections and a fair cash offer. Visit PGHbuyers.com to sell that unwanted property for a fair price today. It's Joe again from Thinking Logically, here to tell you about one of my favorite clothing items, the MyPillow hoodie. Two things I love the most about this hoodie are how it fits and how it feels. This hoodie is extremely roomy, and its terry cloth material makes it lighter than any other hoodie I own. Use promo code LOGIC to maximize your savings. The MyPillow hoodie. Get yours today.
Some things just seem to go together well. You know, like salt and pepper, love and marriage, pencils and paper, and liver and onions. What? Liver and onions? Who wrote this? Hi, this is Andy Dangle from Freedom United Federal Credit Union, here to talk about two other things that go great together, cars and cash. If you're like me, you like both of those things, and right now, During Cars and Cash Month, Freedom United is making their unbelievable new and late model auto loan available so you can get all the cash you need to get the car you've been dreaming of, based on credit approval and vehicle purchase. Cars and Cash. That's a combination that you can't beat. Look for a picture of me holding all the cash you'll need, along with other details about Cars and Cash Month in the Freedom United Facebook feed. Member NCUA, Equal Housing Lender.
The views and opinions expressed on WBVP and WMBA are those of the participants and host. They are not necessarily the viewpoint of WBVP and WMBA, its staff, management, and advertisers. Thank you for listening to WBVP and WMBA.
Welcome back to 99.3 WBVP. You're listening to Thinking Logically, where our views are, these are all show trials. And boy, were we right. Okay, today's episode is brought to you by Grossi & Associates. Grossi & Associates, voted Best of the Valley from 2018 until 2023. Help us help them run it back another year by calling Grossi & Associates for all your auto collision needs and more. Okay, Mark, we had a third presidential candidate go down. Down goes Frazier, as they say. RFK Jr. apparently had brain worms. Hashtag ivermectin, anyone? So Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was told a parasitic worm ate part of his brain. Court documents reveal the devastating impact it had on the presidential candidate's health. Mark, what should we make of this?
I just Googled the famous quote from Dumb and Dumber. Worms. I got worms. and you know what comes up, Joe? From CNN, your boy, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, explains what could have led to RFK Jr. having worms in his brain. This is interesting. I don't really know what to make of it, to be quite honest with you. Maybe I don't know how that happens. He eats part of his brain and the worm dies. But yeah, I'm not really sure what to make of it. But I know he's going further left and left, and I know that he's going to take more votes away from Joe Biden than he is Donald Trump in the fall. So that's really all I'm concerned about.
Okay, a few things I'd like to point out. Well, first of all, let's get the crazy tweet from, who was the elected official? Mike Collins, Representative Mike Collins. He said this: you either die a Kennedy with a hole in the brain or live long enough to become a Kennedy with a hole in the brain. Okay,
Ouch.
okay. My comments on it, my point of view, I would still vote for the guy with the brain worm over Joe Biden. I mean, not a joke, folks. Not a joke, folks. It's a sad story because it happened to RFK and the Kennedys. I mean, they have a strong history with their brains being taken. JFK, of course, had his brain blown up. His sister, Rosemary Kennedy, she was lobotomized, if you don't know. And now RFK Jr. has a brain or worm live in his brain, and he half it over the course of a few years. If it were Biden having a brain or having a worm eat his brain over the last few years, I think people would just say, oh, yes, that makes sense. But, I mean, the media, watch, they will be so obsessed over this RFK worm in the brain story the next few days, and they will completely ignore Joe Biden's brain, or lack thereof. Okay, speaking of brains, let's move on to one of the smartest people on planet Earth, Chris Cuomo. Mark, we just said a few weeks ago how we were starting to, hey, I like Chris Cuomo. He's not that bad of a guy. We saw him on Tucker. He made some good points. And then I believe he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, if I'm not mistaken. And he's quoted as saying, what is this? Joe Rogan was on the New York Times. Joe Rogan on the New York Times finally acknowledging those injured by the COVID vaccines. Chris Cuomo just came out and said he's got a vaccine injury. That guy was pushing that on TV forever. People who say they were injured by COVID vaccines believe their cases have been ignored. Well, they have. They have been ignored. I have friends that have been ignored. And that's coming from Chris Cuomo. I confused everyone. He was not on Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan was just quoting what Chris Cuomo said about the vaccine. And I guess I like what Chris Cuomo came out and said about the vaccine, but here's my problem with what Chris Cuomo is saying. Chris, you are a journalist. Maybe instead of shouting things down as conspiracy theories on CNN for 4 years, you could have done a little bit more investigative work, okay? You could have learned about ivermectin. Remember, that drug won a Nobel Peace Prize in medicine. You could have looked at all the studies on hydroxychloroquine, the ones where people took it as a prophylactic. Maybe you could have found some peer-reviewed studies where doctors use it. It was around for decades. But you didn't do any of that. Instead, you used your platform to shout down and mock the guy that was suggesting some of these therapeutics, President Trump. Also, why did your brother stuff sick people in a nursing home when there were 2 hospital ships sent to New York City Harbor? By the way, Tom Wolfe, we haven't forgot you did it too. Mark.
Joe, no one keeps receipts like you do, Joe.
You're right.
You have a PhD in receipt keeping. I don't want to spike the football on Chris Cuomo, a.k.a. Fredo, as Donald Trump calls him. But, yeah, I'd love to know how many vaccines he actually got, where he now has a vaccine injury. But I'm not surprised. They think that there is, an increased level of clotting in people from the vaccine. I think I just saw something the other day, Joe. What was it? A certain percentage of people who have the vaccine now have permanently injured hearts because of receiving the full vaccine. So I don't know how many vaccines you need, what brand you need, if it's Pfizer or Moderna. We just saw AstraZeneca pull their vaccine because of vaccine injury, because of the liability it creates. So yeah, not surprised, but again, people were saying this 4 years ago when he was, like you said, shouting down from the rooftops.
To our audience, the show is called Thinking Logically, and that's what we're going to do for a second. Now, the vaccine was supposed to be a vaccine. They got on Trump for talking about Joe Rogan, talking about ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. Those were called therapeutics, meaning they treated COVID, a therapeutic. You got sick and you took it and it made you better. Now, what was the vaccine? What was the mRNA vaccine? What was the COVID vaccine? It sounds to me a little bit like it was a therapeutic. Actually, it was exactly that. It was a therapeutic. Because if you remember, the narrative was it would stop you from getting COVID. Then it didn't stop anyone from getting COVID. And then they said, it'll make COVID less dangerous for you. You'll recover quicker. Oh, you'll recover quicker. Doesn't that sound like a therapeutic, not a vaccine? Maybe it's just me, but we're going to think logically about this and wonder, so what did we take? If it wasn't a vaccine, what did we take that was a therapeutic, and how was it a therapeutic? Did it really help? They've been caught lying so many times. And again, back to Chris Cuomo. Sorry, Chris, you need this tough love from me and people like me because you have to learn a lesson so you don't ever make the same mistake again. Because there's a lot of peer pressure when you're on television, I'm sure, to say certain things. And you have to learn this the hard way now. Mark, anything else before we move on to Jamal Bowman, the conspiracy theorist?
No, I think you touched on you brought up a lot of good points there, Joe, with the vaccine. And it's actually, in fact, you said the Toronto vaccine is actually a therapeutic, and I think you are 100% correct because they told us initially, if you got the vaccine, you wouldn't get COVID. But we all know that wasn't true.
All right, but I am not a doctor, so we'll have to see what Dr. Fauci says about this. Anyway, moving on, Jamal Bowman, you remember him? Bowman, he's the guy the high school principal that is now a House of Representatives member who pulled the fire alarm to stop a congressional proceeding. Someone at the Daily Beast did an article, and they found his YouTube account, and this guy supposedly, and we might want to play the disclaimer about dangerous ideas and opinions, Jamal Bowman is a 9/11 denier. He has 9/11 conspiracies on his old blog. He's insisted that this is only a phase he went through in his mid-30s, but they found his active and current YouTube page that was updated as recently as April. And like I said, the videos include 9/11 truth videos, brace for impact, flat earth videos, quotes from the article quotes from articles and people that are known Russian and Chinese disinformation peddlers, stuff about time travel, and something about Earth's frequencies. Also, blacks are the real Jews, which I believe Kanye or Kyrie Irving was canceled for saying that. Mark, is this what is this?
I was going to say, is he hanging out with Kyrie Irving? I mean, a flat earther. This is insane. I mean, imagine if he was a Republican and they found this. I mean, they would have branded him, everything. Jeez, this is I have nothing here.
Blacks are the real Jews, as if black Jews are rushing Palestinians in the Crown Heights area of New York City or something.
Jamal Bowman, a former high school principal who pulled a fire alarm.
That's the best story ever. He pulls the fire alarm and then says he doesn't know it's a fire alarm. And that is like the original high school prank. You get spring fever, you pull the fire alarm, and then everyone goes outside and someone gets suspended. Jamal Bowman does it, and what happens? He doesn't get suspended. George Santos gets thrown out of office. What a time to be alive. What a time to be alive.
It all adds up now.
All right, when we come back, because we have to take a break here. What time is it? Oh, yeah, we got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about January 6th. You may know it as the insurrection. Revolver News put out some pipe bombshells, I guess, pun intended, about the pipe bomber and a government official that predicted everything. What's this all about? We'll talk about it when we return, but first, like Ray Epps said, we need to go into the commercial break. Stay tuned. You're listening to Thinking Logically here on 99.3 WBVP.
Tune in to Beaver County Radio every Tuesday from 4 to 6 p.m. for the Sports Corner with Ralph Williams and Smokin' Jim Frazier. The Sports Corner talks about everything that is currently going on in the sports world. Ralph and Smokin' Jim will also have special guests every week, and they'll take your calls. The show will also be streamed live on the Beaver County Radio Facebook page and YouTube channel. So make plans every Tuesday at 4 p.m. to tune in to the Sports Corner, right here on Beaver County Radio.
When accidents and injuries happen, you need the experience and insight of the legal team at Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George. Since 1934, they've been committed to the physical and financial recovery of personal injury victims. Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George, a law firm of AV-rated attorneys and super lawyers. Attorney Larry Kelly.
That we establish relationships with our clients, because I still believe that relationships still matter. That this isn't strictly business between me and the client, that there's a relationship that develops. And there's nothing more important, I think, in any attorney-client situation than the client believing that the attorney actually cares about them personally.
For your initial consultation, call the law firm of Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George at 724-658-8535 or online at lgkg.com. Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George, keeping promises for over 80 years.
Hey guys, it's Joe from Thinking Logically here to tell you about a company I've been using since I got my learner's permit. Grossi & Associates. Using their state-of-the-art equipment, Grossi & Associates offers collision repair for all makes and models, both foreign and domestic. There's a reason why they are voted Best of the Valley year in and year out. They are the collision experts. Grossi & Associates. Call today for a free estimate.
You're listening to Beaver County Radio, coming to you live from the Fry Transportation Studios. Beaver County Radio and Fry Transportation, a winning team. 99.3 FM and WBVP, providing news, sports, and information for 76 years.
The views and opinions expressed on WBVP and WMBA are those of the participants and host. They are not necessarily the viewpoint of WBVP and WMBA, its staff, management, and advertisers. Thank you for listening to WBVP and WMBA. View and opinion number 1. Remember, these are show trials. Treat them accordingly. Okay, welcome back to Thinking Logically on 99.3 WBVP, brought to you by Mitchell's Jewelers. It takes an enormous amount of pressure to make a diamond. So why should you put yourself under any more pressure when buying one? Don't. Go to Mitchell's Jewelers, where the choice is as clear as their diamonds. Mitchell's Jewelers, located at 2454 Mill Street in Aliquippa, PA. Okay, Mark, Darren Beatty, I think he runs Revolver News, has been on fire, spot on when it comes to this
January 6th, the pipe bomber aspect of it. And from what I understand, he put out an article. I didn't have time to read the whole thing. I tried to push this off on you. But from what I understand, there was this deep state official named Donnell Harvin, who was a never Trumper. And supposedly he's responsible for predicting this infamous January 6th pipe bomb issue. And for some reason, he's not interested in taking any credit. Now, the narrative is they were worried that someone would plant pipe bombs as a distraction. This was days or weeks before January 6th. And that distraction would divert resources, and they would have to be diverted to the pipe bombs. My question is, why were they so worried about the Capitol days before, and why weren't they worried about the pipe bomb hurting people instead of just causing a distraction? That makes no sense. And this is a very specific thing that this low-level guy thought up.
So this Donnell Harvin, Joe, he was the head of intelligence at Washington, D.C.'s Homeland Security Office. And apparently on the days leading up to January 6th, they, I want to say his coworker, his counterpart in San Francisco, Mike Sena, the alarm bells were going off that something was going to happen in January 6th. The red flags were everywhere. Social media companies are getting, lit up. And they're aware something is going to go down on January 6th. So this Mike Sena, and stop me if I'm going on, we need to go on to the next topic here. He has this call, and with all the other fusion centers across the country from Homeland Security to find out what others were seeing. So he thinks there's going to be like a couple dozen people in on this call. There are nearly 300 officials from nearly all 80 regions from New York to Guam logged on. So what happened was, basically in a nutshell, Christopher Wray lied, the director of the FBI lied to Congress and said that they were kind of slipped through the cracks. That was not the case. They were sounding the alarm that something was going down on January 6th. So Harvin basically hands some of this off to his junior deputy there in his office. And this junior deputy basically comes up with a theory that there's going to be a bomb that's going to be used on, I think this is like December 30th, that they're going to use bombs to act as a diversionary tactic to draw resources away from the Capitol on January 6th. How would they have known, Joe? How would they have accurately predicted that they would have planted bombs as a diversionary tactic 7 days before it happened? That would have been an unbelievable coincidence, even a bigger coincidence, Joe, than two bombs planted at the RNC and DNC 16 hours before 1 o'clock on January 6th. And then all of a sudden they are magically found within 20 minutes of each other after laying there for 16 hours. What are the odds?
Perfect timing to be found.
Yes. So, as the story goes, and as we now know, the reports of these pipe bombs were found between, I think, 12:40 and 1:05 on January 6th. We know the Ray Epps-led invasion of the Capitol began at 12:53 p.m. The vote tally was supposed to happen at 1 o'clock under Mike Pence I believe in the Senate, right? And all of a sudden, all of these DHS, I believe, vehicles leave the Capitol, go to the RNC, go to the DNC, and now we have the diversionary tactic they were looking for that happened on January 6th. So there you go. But this guy doesn't take any credit for it. I mean,
just like Kamala Harris never tells anyone that she was at the Capitol, right? Or she was at the RNC or DNC building right next to the pipe bombs. Why wouldn't you when you talk about January 6th, why wouldn't you tell that story every time unless they're trying to ignore it for some reason? Sounds a little bit like it's a conspiracy theory. I don't know.
Joe, I will tell you, if Donald Trump wins, we're gonna get some hard answers, and the people are going to be held accountable, I think.
All right. Moving on to our second to last topic, a sad one. The Boy Scouts are now Scouting America. They have changed their names. What will happen to Girl Scout cookies now? I do not know. Who is going to want to join this institution, Scouting America. I don't know. How does this help at all? I don't know. Mark, I don't know if you want to say anything about it, but in a related topic, Swiss Army knives now go bladeless. So this is from GB News. Swiss Army knife to go bladeless after more than a century of production due to a crime wave? This is ridiculous. Free shout out to Asher Knives. Check them out. They will keep the blade on your knife, I promise. God forbid. Do you have anything to say before we move on to the last interesting conspiracy topic, I guess you could call it?
No, that's just I have nothing on the Scouting America. I mean,
okay,
just a microcosm of our society today.
The wussification of America.
Joe, going back to. Never mind. We'll wait. We'll save it for the next episode.
Okay. All right. This is from Patrick Webb on X. We got about 4 minutes here. FBI records of LP Guys, the grandfather of Jeff Bezos, who helped create DARPA, were destroyed, according to a newly obtained response to a FOIA, that's Freedom of Information Act request. And the records were... It's just, I can't read this. It's too small. But the records were deleted. What are your thoughts on Jeff Bezos' grandfather being a founding father of DARPA, the defense? I can't think of it right now.
Yeah, I mean, you sent this to me, and I think it went back to you. WTF? Like, what? I mean, you were the one that actually opened my eyes to DARPA, Facebook being a DARPA project, and them handing it off to Mark Zuckerberg, which a lot of people we haven't really discussed yet. On this radio show, but that's something we have to get into down the road. But
we can do it at the end of the episode.
In line with some of the things you've said in the past.
So DARPA is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, and it serves as the central research and development organization of the Department of Defense. And you brought up Facebook. How does DARPA relate to Facebook? If you're listening on Facebook Live right now, I have news for you. Facebook is actually a DARPA product. It was called LifeLog. Look it up after the show. Do your own research if you don't believe me. Mark Zuckerberg didn't create Facebook. It was given to him by DARPA. Now, does it make more sense when you look at it that way, why he spent so much money trying to, quote, secure the 2020 election? Because it wasn't his money he was spending. LifeLog, the known DARPA program, ended on February 4th, 2004. Facebook went live February 4th, 2004. Do you think that's a coincidence? Some of LifeLog's senior employees ended up at Facebook. Come on, think about it. Would you join a social media site if it was run by the federal government? No! That's why they had to make it look like a private citizen. Some Ivy League genius created it. Again, it was given to him. Facebook was given to Mark Zuckerberg by DARPA. It's no secret anymore. Do your own research. The only question is, why him? And Mark, I kind of want to end it on that. Do you have anything else you want to share? This is a great show. Great show.
Great show. Great show, Joe. Thank you to Ryan. Thank you to our listeners. I want to end with this. Another W in the win column, Joe. Judge denies Hunter Biden's bid to dismiss gun charges. So he will stand trial in this summer sometime on these drug charges. So he was charged with illegally buying a gun while using illegal drugs. Not a good combination. Joe, great show. Have a great weekend, everyone, and I'll turn it back to you.
All right, Ryan, you have anything you want to say before we head out?
No, I agree. Great show, guys. A lot of interesting things. A lot of things are going on right now that people were talking about. So I do want to say great show. I think the worm in Kennedy's brain is really... how many different bizarre ways can Kennedys have problems? You don't see this anywhere else on the planet, guys. What's going on over there? But great show. Thanks a lot, guys.
Okay, the show is called Thinking Logically. We're here every Monday and Thursday, 5 to 6 p.m., and we are also on Beaver County Radio's Facebook Live and YouTube page. Check us out there. You can even look at old episodes and our podcast, Thinking Logically podcast on Apple, iTunes, Spotify. Go back and listen to an episode from a year or two ago. Tell us what you think. Were we right? Were we wrong? How'd we do? Anyway, have a great day. I'm Joe Corsai. This is Thinking Logically. We'll see you on Monday.
You're listening to 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, in addition to 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls.